My name is Darrell Derksen. I am a specialized kinesiologist. I'm a certified colon therapist. I'm a biofeedback therapist. I'm trained in 11 different forms of reflex analysis. Who here has had reflexology done? Well, there's 11 other ways to determine reflexes in your body besides your feet and your hands. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Do you know that your colon is a reflex organ? So just like your feet and your hand and your hands, it has reflex spots on it that control and contribute to other parts of your body. And as a colon therapist, I learned a long time ago how important it was to take care of the colon, and not just the colon, but the entire digestive tube. So your gastrointestinal tract, starting at your mouth and finishing at the other end. And so today we're going to show you what happens. At least in my history, I've seen a lot of different scenarios of people's digestive complaints and concerns, and today we're going to try to clarify some of those concerns for you. So, who here would like to feel better? Who here thinks you can do it in half an hour? One hand. All right, so one hand to feel better. What if I could show you a way to feel better in 20 to 30 minutes? Would you be excited about that? Yeah. It's possible. Each and every one of you is going to walk out of here different than when you came in. That's my promise. But you got to do the work accurately, because if it's not accurately done, it won't give you the results you're looking for. It's really important. I'm interested in helping you, but I'm interested more on you how to help yourself. Because when you walk away at the end of the day, you don't want to become dependent on your therapist. At least I would prefer not. I would prefer something different. So for you guys, you actually get a chance to see how you can contribute to your body in such a way that you can feel it. And it's all about the results with me. If you don't get the results, then I'm not really that interested, because I see a lot of things out there that give people results, but it's a very shallow window. And I'd like to see that window extended, because when it boils down to it, the core is really here. This is your true engine. So the engine has to have a maintenance level to it. If you just ran your car every day and you didn't put oil in it and you didn't put antifreeze in it and you didn't check the spark plugs, how well would your car run after 10 years? Wouldn't run so good. Well, your body's a lot like that too. This is a fast way and a permanent way of creating a tune-up on demand anytime you please, anytime you want to. So if you have the 20 minutes in the morning or you have the 20 minutes at nighttime, it's a great time to contribute to your body. It's a wonderful time to create a process that actually becomes easier to do as you do it. So if you do this every day for 40 days, I can only make one promise. If you do it accurately, you're going to feel a lot different. And people are going to remark on that just by looking at you. They're going to tell something's different about you because everything is supported differently. Who here goes to other kind of therapist, like a chiropractor or a physiotherapist or massage therapist? Wonderful. Acupuncturist, naturopath, and regular physicians. So even if you go to any of these wonderful doctors or therapists, this does not interfere with their work. I spent 10 years perfecting this process so that it would not interfere with anyone's work. It actually contributes to their work. So if you go to a chiropractor and they do an adjustment on you, that adjustment will last, because the contributing organs that send the power to the muscles that hold the bones in place, that hold the nerves in place and not infringed upon and not squished down or protruded against. Also, the whole organization of the way that your body communicates as a whole is completely changed when you do this. So the first step that we show you is, one, turn on your lymph gates. Now your lymph nodes do a job, and the job is to clean your blood. Basically, they're your white blood cells. And if you can activate these lymph nodes, you're going to stimulate the way that Your muscles and organs take up nutrition, but also the way they exodus the waste. It's a really good way to instantly improve your strength. So I'm going to show you where those spots are. The lymph gates are on the four corners of the torso. Here and here, here and here. So we're going to activate the upper set by finding your armpit as the landmark and taking a 2-inch spread towards your heart like a ruler. Women, you'll find it just behind your bra strap. For men, it's just exactly 2 inches straight line in. And from that point, you're going to take your 4 fingers where your thumb is, exchange your 4 fingers, try to angle, if you can, your wrist so that this turns into like a rake. And you're going to activate about 3 pounds of pressure, which is going to depress into the muscle till it stops. It might be sore, so be careful. So when you're activating this, you're pushing in and drawing that up to the collarbone. You can do it a few times, and you will feel probably a little sore, most of you, but it will feel actually pretty good. Because it gets the energy flowing right down into your hand. Because you're going to need that energy in a minute. So you're going to do the other side, 2 inches in. But you have to use the opposite hand. You can't use the same hand because your muscle will contract. You can't turn it on. So we want to push in about the depression of your fingers into the muscle and then draw up toward the collarbone, like so. So the upper strength is now running. So we want to run the lower strength. So these lower lymph gates run the energy to the limbs, your knees, your feet. And halfway between your hip bone and your pubic bone, there's a natural leg crease. This leg crease is your landmark. If you're not in the crease, you're not on your lymph. So you want to run it 1 inch up from the pubic bone edge, 2 hands in, and draw toward the hip line. Stay in the crease. A lot of people push up, and that's not correct. The correct way is to stay in the crease toward your hip. You will feel the lymph in there, and you do the other side. So everybody should feel that, correct? Anybody sore down there?
No.
A little bit? Okay. It's easier to do standing than it is sitting, of course, but getting the most important areas to get them activated, and then we can move on. I've given you 2 steps in this handout sheet today that are really the pivotal forefront to make it all happen. So they're literally the most important pieces because you're really changing the geometry, the way the organs sit with each other. I'll explain more on the next thing. So now that we have our arms energy running, and energy runs off your palm and off your fingertip, and it's shown this way through Kirlian photography, which shows infrared heat. So we know the energy runs off there. It's instinct. If you hurt yourself, your hand goes where the hurt is. If you're stressed out, it goes up here. So it's kind of like that. So we know. We don't have to tell us. Like, that's just what our body knows. So we're going to use that energy in a very determined way. We're going to send the energy from our fingertips into the transverse colon. The 2 blue points that you see here. I don't know if you can see this, so I'll lift it up. So we'll lift this up a little high. See the blue corners?
Yeah.
That's where we're targeting. And so the blue corners are really easy to find. See your curvature, your rib cage? If you take your navel, the belly button is a landmark, and you just draw your hand across between the rib and the hip, you just touch like so. So you find your navel here, and you draw your hand across between your hip bone and the bottom of your rib cage, and just draw like so. So your hands are crossed. Everybody can do that? The next step we're going to do is we're going to deeply exhale the wind in your lungs. You have to do this to create an upper vacuum in the upper chest. So deflating the lungs looks like this. And when it's deflated, the next step is to keep it deflated for about 8 count if you can. Tighten up the Kegels or the sex organs and the tummy muscles. All with no air. No, don't try and do this right now because I'm going way past 8 seconds. I don't want anybody passing out. Okay, so we're going to try this again. I'm going to show you how to do it. First is you cross your hands between the ribs and hip in line with the navel on each side. Second step, you deflate the lungs. Third step, contract the sex organs. Testicle lift for men and Kegel uterine contraction and abdominal contraction. So everything tightens up with no air. Now your knees do this. Now this is the tough part. Everyone relax. I'm gonna go through this a few times. The hardest part to learn about sequential core alignment is when you're trying to do a muscle memory circuit. You're setting up a muscle memory circuit. We call it pause lock because in kinesiology, specialized kinesiology, that's what we called it. So you can either call it pause lock or circuit retaining. We're going to retain the memory of what you're doing at the time your knees are apart and they're going to move together while your jaw opens up. So it looks like this. If these are your knees, because you can't see my knees, but I'll make these my knees. So they're going to go. So the legs go. And you're paralyzed in the chair, so you'll be using your hands instead of your knees. It still works. Cool, huh? If you can't use your hands, you can use your thumbs. Like your hands can go like this and like this. Like say these were your legs. Because all we're using is muscles. It doesn't matter what group of muscles we use, so long as we use a group of muscles. So I can go. It's the same thing. But I'm using the knees because it's a bigger group of muscles, and usually we're sitting or standing or laying down. So here's what it looks like. Deflate, contract the sex organs, tummy muscles, legs and jaw. Was that hard? That's it. Once the knees are apart, you must keep them apart because they're now given a job. The muscles in your hips are called gluteus medius, and these muscles are now holding the memory of what you did at the time that changeover was happening, the legs and jaw. Shall we try it again? Okay, here we go. These are my knees, right? So I'm going to bring my knees together, and my jaw opens up when that happens, like. Now you guys use your knees because you're all sitting. Okay? You do that about 5 or 6 times, get in front of a wall mirror, you'll start to get in sequence with the timing between your knees and your jaw. If you're not in sequence timing, you will not hold the circuit and it will not work. That I do know. So it's really, really important to get the timing. So here's what it looks like in real. Now, what's happening, even though I finished and I'm breathing again, the muscle circuit memory is holding that like a tape recorder is when you turn it on. It's cycling that tape of memory every 8 seconds. Every 8 seconds. So even though your knees are in a holding position, the memory circuit runs. So you don't have to. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Otherwise, I'd have to get you to do that little trick every 8 seconds for 20 minutes straight. And that's the beauty of specialized kinesiology. We've come up with little things like this to create something that allows us to have things working for us even though we're in a position of stationary movement. We could be reading a book, we could be listening to music, watching TV, we could be writing something down, or it doesn't really matter. As long as your knees are apart, you could be in an airplane. You could be a passenger in a car going from here to Vernon. But guess what? Why not train your organs? Why not train them? Because that very technique I showed you is what's creating a lift from the prolapsed transverse colon, bringing it back up, and when it comes up, the stomach comes up with it. When this comes up, the transverse colon, the bladder starts to get relief. Because you've got compression on a bladder, and that might mean you're getting up at night, once or twice or too many times. And why are you getting up? Because you have prolapse. That's a possible and probably one of the biggest reasons. The other reason you might be getting up is because you might be on medication. There's a number of things going on. However, this will help. It will not hurt, it will not harm, it will help. It will help a big way. What you may not know, because I have a little bit more time to explain this to you, while you're sitting there, many of you, did you keep your knees apart? There you go. It's easy to forget. When you start this for the first time, I always say to people, grab a pillow and just throw them between your knees, because you don't realize what, something new, right? So you haven't made it routine yet. So if you put a pillow between your knees for at least that 15 to 20 minute mark, we know the work is getting done. But if you unconsciously shift or fidget around, you're not going to be able to hold the circuit of energy that creates that change you're looking for. So here's what happens. The stomach controls all these muscles. Watch. Biceps, upper pecs, the jaw muscles, the neck extensors that draw your neck down, and the neck flexors both ways. The neck rotators, these big muscles in here. I'm not going to name them because it doesn't really matter what the names are. You know where they are. The stomach controls all of those, as well as the muscles from the shoulder blade that pull into 4 vertebrae into your neck on both sides. That's all stomach powered, as well as the forearm in here. So if you've got carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, frozen shoulder, TMJ, cervical misalignments, thoracic misalignments, this targets all of that, or buildup in your joint pathways like crystals in your joints. Making sense? Stomach powers all that. The colon powers muscles deep inside your abdominal cavity that keep your hips in place. The bladder powers muscle, well, not just that, I'll get back to the colon. The colon also powers muscles that allow your leg to take a position like this. It allows the hamstrings to stay loose or tense. And you know what happens when you have tense hamstrings? Your back can get sore. And this is one of the predominant causes for about 90% of back pain people suffer. Who'd like to hear that? It's the truth. And I'll get back to your questions. So the other thing is, if you've got jaw pain, dental pain, head pain, problems with the ears, problems with the vision, a lot of times that is directly related to the way the stomach is running, because it controls the show up here, from here up, the colon from here down. So now, when the transverse colon lays down on the bladder, it's actually squishing the bladder down from 750 milliliters of fluid to maybe less than a third of that. So how come you got to relieve yourself so often? Because that's as big as it gets. It's as big as it gets. When you lift that bladder, you're actually lifting the colon off the bladder. The bladder can start to retain its natural capacity to hold fluid. That means the swelling in the ankle starts to go down. The swelling around the belly starts to go down. And the weight that you're carrying that drives your blood pressure up can start to reverse. Pretty cool. And your brain works better when it's better hydrated. Way better. So if you're holding on to fluid, you're not going to be holding on to your memories. So they kind of check out. So it kind of works like that. So the other thing that can happen is on a man, the prostate gets squished when the bladder gets squished. You know what happens there. Possible things can happen with the prostate or the sex drive. Both men and women. Women's uterus will tip over and to the back, or they'll just have it removed. So it can be many, many things contributing just from the change of this core positioning. It's absolutely monumental in the way that your body holds on to energy, the way that your body conducts energy between different organs and different glands. One thing I want to say too is the biggest vein in your body, the hepatic portal vein, this big blue one here, it's as thick as your little finger. Guess what? It's running right to your liver. And it's branched out into small and large intestines, both the vein as well as the artery. Now think of that as your nutrition highway up to the liver, which goes up the jugular to the brain. So if these veins are distended, stretched, the volume of nutrition getting up to the liver and the way the liver can try to exit its waste is what? Restricted. As much as 30 or more %. So it changes the way that works in a huge, huge way. So just on a few things that you've learned in a few minutes here, the impact is pretty large. How many of you feel any different sitting in your chair after about 15 minutes of me talking? Not quite sure yet? When you all get up and rush to the bathroom after, it's like this. When people come into the office, they lay down, we show them how to do this, the actual work gets done, and usually they'll trip to the bathroom a couple times, maybe 2 or 3 times in the time they're in my office. And that's just from them exodusing the water, getting rid of the excess water, and allowing new water to uptake again. The digestive organs quite often make a lot of noise as they shift. They'll gurgle and do different things, and you might have heard that, you might have felt it. You might notice that the tension in your shoulder starts to let go a bit, or the tension in your lower back starts to let go a little bit, because of the placement is changing. And when I had a person lay down on a table before me, most of the people, if they were back at your vantage point, would see their belly start to change and drop, change position. They start to see this visibly. So it's actually very fun to watch when you're watching people change like this. But the most important thing is that you can actually pass it on to your loved ones too. And so just to say that anybody who comes into the office, they get the full handout. This is part 1 and part 2, but there's 11 steps, basically 11 to 12 steps. And they get the full handout as part of the session. And every time they come back, guess what I test them on? What? They got to be doing their part. If they're not doing their part, then I got to show them how to do it again until they get it. Otherwise, I would be inundated. And that may be a good thing for some, but I'd rather have people out there getting the shift and the core energy changing, so that when they're going to their acupuncturist or their chiropractor or their massage therapist, they're just different. They don't have the same problem, the same frequency of problems. Things start to turn around. So we start off with that. And if you're finished the core alignment, what I always tell people is to take some stretches. Like if you're sitting down, lean forward and see how the tension is in your back. See if it's let up. Because you know how you came in and you know how it felt to sit down. But when you stand up after this, you might notice that there's a lightness to your feet. And there's a lightness to me talking even, that you can actually receive what I'm saying. Because what's the point of me talking if you're not receiving? So receiving is a big thing. And I'm really, really honored that all of you would take time out of your day to sit here with me for half an hour and have me explain some things. And believe me, I explain in a lot greater detail. I teach classes in this work, and I'm teaching classes in all the Western provinces right now. So we've taught them in Kelowna, we've taught them in Regina, we've taught them in Calgary, we've taught them in Lethbridge, we taught them in Edmonton, we taught them, I've even been to Ontario and down in the southern states, down near San Diego. But the whole idea is to get this catching on. So as long as you're trained by someone who knows what they're talking about and who can test you to make sure that each of you are doing it accurately, your results will be just that. From a 4-year-old to a 94-year-old or 104-year-old, it works the same. So it doesn't matter how old you are. And that's the good part. Because I like to see people walk out going, wow, this is cool. I can't wait to try this. And oh, I might not be doing it right, but I know at least I can call somebody who'll help me. Help me do it right, so that you can get it for you and apply it for you and run it in your body, so that all the nutrition you take in and all the waste that you're moving to and from starts to happen with greater efficiency. So the energy you are waking up with in the morning stays with you instead of dissipating off so early in the day, or you're taking stimulants to try to jump yourself back up again. This isn't required. All it's required is staying in the center, in the core, keeping that core in position so that your body stays in position and you can retain the good energy the good nutrition that you're putting in, making better choices for yourself. And if you're an athlete, this is an amazing thing for athletes too, because they can really feel the difference their body makes just by doing this. Thank you.